Hello everybody and welcome to another video tutorial. Now for this week's tutorial you guys voted and you guys chose for me to actually paint a Chimera. So when I was looking at some of the information on this mythical creature, I found out that it had some interesting attributes. Essentially it's mainly the body of a lion combined with that of a goat and a snake essentially as its tail. So when I was looking at the actual reference materials and especially some of the actual sculptures that were done much earlier in time, I discovered that in most cases the goat portion for the head was actually put directly on top of the lion, in sometimes a very awkward manner. So I wanted to find a more seamless way to actually portray this. Now, more modern interpretations, some people actually include a dragon's head, but in the original version there is no dragon's head, it's just a lion and that of a goat, with obviously the serpent-like tail. So the snake-like tail itself was not a difficult concept to come by. That was very simple. But the rest of it was actually quite difficult anatomically because I did have to take a lot into account while I was working on the design. First and foremost, I needed to find out a way to incorporate the goat on top of the lion's head while still making it look somewhat natural and appropriate, while also having their two distinctive features still read correctly. So all this I had to take into account as I was actually working on this painting. In the initial sketch you'll notice that I actually drew the goat's head more sideways beside the lion's head, which would make more sense anatomically. But since it wasn't as true to the actual mythology, I decided later on, when I was actually painting out the lion head and the goat's head, to actually put the goat's head above the lion. Now to do this though, I did lower the lion's head a bit. I also lengthened the neck a bit for the goat to help make it look a little bit more natural. So if assuming that this creature would ever exist, the idea is that the lion portion can actually compress inwards so that it can use essentially the goat-like portion, mainly the horns, for an attack. So between those two it's able to actually either bite or ram its opponent. So although it's not even a realistic possibility, it is an interesting idea to keep in mind as I'm working on this painting. So for obvious reasons I wanted to get the anatomy really well done for the lion because it has to sustain all this weight from all these different creature combinations. So I am looking at reference material for the leg muscles. I am exaggerating a lot of those muscles, but also simplifying some other ones just to help show that it requires a lot of strength for this creature to even be able to move. The sheer volume of this creature would be tremendous. I also lengthened the overall body of this creature. Generally a lion's torso would be a lot closer to its hind legs, but because it has such a large torso and I still wanted to have essentially more of a mobility to it, I actually lengthened the entire body of it, essentially from the forearms and the hind legs, just to give it that much more flexibility in its ability to move. Now I decided to make the snake portion more of a white, so it's more of an albino like serpent. Now I do add colors later on in this painting, just to help show some of the colors and tie in all the colors with the rest of the animal. So as I'm working on the lion's head right now, it's actually at this point that I actually start revising how I'm actually going to incorporate the goat portion of the head within the overall design. Now at this point I know that I want to have more of a spinal looking spinal cord to this creature, and have it protruding and feeding into the goat portion. So the goat portion would actually be somewhat serpent-like. It's going to have the same color of the serpent head, but it's going to obviously have more furs instead of the actual scales that a serpent would have. Now as I was working on the mane for the lion, that actually I experimented for quite a long time trying to figure out how I was actually going to render this. I ended up using a combination of the default round brush to do the initial painting, and then actually using my eraser tool set to a hairbrush, and then painting over that with another hairbrush that I have. So between all those combinations, I was able to get something that looked more organic, looked more appropriate for the hair and the mane of the tiger, and that helped tie in that element to the rest of it. Now you can see that for the goat, I actually have the goat feeding into the mane, so it's almost joined onto the same neck, but it still has a certain level of mobility that's unique to it. Later on, you'll actually see me also turn the lion's head, so I'll actually paint out certain portions, add additional portions, so I can actually rotate the head a little bit towards the viewer. The reason why I did this is because I didn't want to have everything facing the same direction. Generally that's boring and it's not very appealing, so I really wanted to offset that a bit. Now I just added a linear dodge layer to this to help brighten up certain portions, and once I brightened up some of the general areas, I went in afterwards and added highlights into the muscle fibers just to really make those muscles pop a bit more, have more contrast between them. I was able to get a lot more detail into this design by doing that. Now at this point I have decided that I actually don't want to do too much for the background, so I'm actually just adding a drop shadow to the character design, and now I'm actually going to be working on changing the perspective of the head. So it's very important that I get the nose correct. So I play around quite a bit with the nose design until I get something that works a lot better. Then I start adding the ears to further reinforce the fact that this lion is actually slightly 3/4 of a view towards the viewer, and that really helps change the overall perspective and really offsets the angles from the goat and the serpent so that everything looks more appealing. So this is the final image. As you guys can see, I did some changes, I added a bit more detail, but other than that, it's pretty much what you saw me paint. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you guys soon, so thank you and take care.